We know some of the disease areas Google's already targeting, but which are other areas I might consider next? COPD, cancer, mental and behavioral health, and the disease of aging seem to make the most sense. COPD is one of the big chronic disease cost drivers that Google doesn't seem to have an explicit venture into yet, but would make a lot of sense for them to get into. The study watch can already capture some of the environmental data which might help understand what triggers an episode, and more interestingly, they acquired a company called Synosis Health in 2017, which claims to be able to use existing smartphones to detect hemoglobin levels and monitor pulmonary function, so might be able to detect the disease earlier. And then on the intervention side, again, not said explicitly, but from that same GSK deck about electroceuticals, they highlighted asthma and COPD as potential target areas. Cancer is a widespread and pretty poorly understood disease that affects a lot of people. Google has some feelers in the space already. On the data generation side, it has an investment in an early cancer detection startup called Freenome, which I mentioned is working in their lab, and they captured data from circulating tumor DNA in the bloodstream. They've put out a paper on how their machine learning algorithms can identify tumors pretty reasonably well, and its DeepMind division is working with the NHS to help design radiotherapy treatments for head and neck cancer, which is really complex due to the cancer's proximity around the nerves. Interestingly, the company was also involved in a study a very long time ago to see whether peer support might help cancer patients by talking to each other who went through the process. And even though the results were never published, it's possible that they might explore this angle with a new perspective. The main gap here is that Google doesn't have access directly to the CT and MRI scans, so a partnership with companies that do, like Samsung for example, could make sense. Mental and behavioral health is also a not super well understood phenomenon, and it's coming more in the spotlight nowadays. Google has a partnership with the National Alliance of Mental Illness to provide a survey with people that search about mental illness, which is where that product distribution advantage I talked about comes in handy. But this could potentially help direct people to mental or behavioral health support avenues if they feel like they need it. The detection part could come from one of their portfolio companies, Quartet Health, which helps primary care docs detect and assist people that might have mental health disorders. The gap here is the treatment and intervention. Google could potentially work with mobile-based therapy, CBT, or coaching to help people who might be afflicted, and they actually have a job posting specifically for someone to direct the research and product in the behavioral health space. And finally, there's aging, which isn't really a secret since Google's working on this pretty explicitly, and we talked about Calico a few times, but the company is basically trying to find ways to fight the Grim Reaper. They put out an interesting paper about how naked mole rats actually don't age the traditional way, and its goal is to work with biotech firms on drugs that might be able to prevent some of the processes that degrade due to aging.